Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for logging in today for the August Female Founders event. My name is Sharon Smith and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Canberra Innovation Network. I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet online today, the Ngunnawal people. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I extend this respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. We are delighted to be partnering with Women with Altitude to bring you this event today. It does look quite different to what we had planned, but I have no doubt that Nat will be as equally informative and entertaining online as she would have been in person. What a week for Canberra it has been. It shows how quickly things can change. And if there can be any silver lining to this current event, it's being able to have our friends from other states and territories who have been doing it incredibly tough join us today. What has been incredibly comforting and reassuring is to see the way in which Canberrans have supported each other. The Canberra Innovation Network is here to support you as business owners, entrepreneurs, founders and members of the broader innovation and business community through this period and of course beyond. All events, workshops and meetings with our team have been moved online, so please take a look at the website to see what might work best for you. So I'm really looking forward to the next hour or so I'll hand over to you now, Lisa, from Women with Altitude. Thank you.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's wonderful to be here. Many of you, for those of you who may not have met me out in the real world before, I'm Lisa Lemaitre and I'm known for my two businesses, Therapy Masters and Canberra Wise Women. And at the start of this year, Andrea, who's the founder of Women with Altitude, reached out to me and asked me to become the new lead for Women with Altitude in Canberra. I took on that role in April and I'm doing my best to lift the profile of Women with Altitude in Canberra. And in doing that, I reached out through my wonderful connections at Canberra Innovation Network to be able to bring you this event today. So unfortunately, we're not in the office in the city enjoying a lovely lunch together, but we are still all together and I'm really looking forward to you all getting to know a little bit more about Nat, which is fantastic. Women with Altitude started in the Blue Mountains up in Sydney by Andrea Boys in 2012. There are currently 10 chapters across the Blue Mountains and Sydney and Canberra, and it's wonderful to be part of a much larger organisation that is all about educating, uplifting and empowering business women. So I'll hand over to Britt now. And yeah, I look forward to spending an hour with everybody. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. I just have a few housekeeping notes to start off with. As you guys can see, this Female Founders has been set up as a webinar, but we still would love for you guys to interact and send in your questions. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the Q&A button. So submit your questions there and we'll get to them towards the end of the session. We also have the chat as well, so feel free to introduce yourself in there. I can see people are already getting in there. Share what you're up to and also feel free to comment on anything you might find interesting as well. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Natalie Legg. Nat, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you please share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Natalie Legg. I grew up in country New South Wales. I'm a proud Kamilaroi woman from that area. I own a couple of businesses. So I own Little Oink Café at the cook shops, as well as the To All My Friends bar, which is next door. And then I'm a co-owner of A23, which is a professional services ICT company here in Canberra. And I also perform the role of COO for A23.
Awesome. Lots of hats there.
Yeah.
So in the title of this event, when we put it out, we introduced Nat and her life of a serial entrepreneur. Nat, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur? How do you feel about that word?
That's actually funny that you asked that because I actually cut that word out of the first edit of my bio and then Lisa put it back in and I went with her judgment. I do, I don't know, like I always think of an entrepreneur as somebody who maybe like innovates technology or invents something or something like that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know the definition of entrepreneur. I definitely, I guess, am somebody who started a few businesses and then have been through the roller coasters of those for 8 years now, I think it is. So yeah, I guess if that makes me a serial entrepreneur, then guilty as charged.
How would you possibly define it yourself?
Define entrepreneur or define
what you do, yeah.
I don't know, somebody, I don't know, I guess I'm just don't give up on things. I'm stubborn. Is that a title? Maybe that's what it is. Don't like to fail, don't like to give up. Those are probably the things about me. Probably one thing I always say about, I think, people who do what I have done is that we're equal parts arrogant and insecure. So you've got enough of an ego to think that you absolutely can do this, and are insecure enough to never be satisfied that you've done enough, if that makes sense.
When you introduce yourself as a country girl as well. Do you think there's elements of that pull through?
Oh, absolutely. I 100% believe that people who grow up in small country towns punch above their weight. I think there is something to be said for being a big fish in a small pond, even though that goes against some narratives that are out there. You know, I absolutely always thought I could do whatever I wanted to do. I had access to be able to be on any team or try anything, because pretty much in a small country town or at a small school, if everyone doesn't participate, then you don't get a team together. So whether that be sport, mock trial, debating, you know, I don't know, science competitions, like whatever, it's just the same kids like backing up doing that, because otherwise it would be enough. So, you know, I think that upbringing definitely helped me. And then also, I suppose, just that work ethic, and certainly there is an entrepreneurial lineage in my family as well. So I definitely grew up seeing that that we could do anything, and certainly women did everything.
Yeah. So what brought you to Canberra originally?
Yeah, so I, like so many people, came to Canberra for a graduate program. So finished up my degree, thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with this arts degree and this grad diploma in IT. So I applied for a graduate program and was successful, and came down and started my career with employment in 2004.
What do you think it is about Canberra that keeps you here?
I think it's a lot of things. Like, a part of it is that for me, it does have a little bit of that small town vibe. Like, I like that if I go down to the shops or if I go out, I will always run into somebody that I know. Some people don't like that. I do like that. I do like feeling like I'm part of a community, that that there are people that know who I am and I know who people are, and that if someone saw my kid down the street doing the wrong thing, they would be able to message me and say, hey, they were doing the wrong thing, you know, those kinds of things. Yeah, so I like how easy it is. I absolutely know for a fact I wouldn't be able to do what I do in Sydney or Melbourne, just from pure ease of getting around. You know, I can go to my office in the city, and then if something were to go wrong in the cafe, I can get home in 15 minutes. Like, it's, you know, we are so lucky here to be able to drive from one side to the other in 30 minutes. You know, that really opens up a world of opportunity, I think. You know, Canberra as well punches above its weight, I think, in that respect. So, yeah.
Do you see that community Canberra side of things more in the hospitality businesses than in the IT businesses, or would you say it's much the same?
Look, I think it's different but similar. I mean, I think in both scenarios, especially in private sector IT, I mean, I would say that a huge amount of our employees are personal contacts, are people that have been referred to us. We heavily favour personal referrals from existing staff in terms of hiring new people. So absolutely, there's that side of it. You know, like, everybody knows everybody, so you really have to try to protect your reputation and, you know, that kind of thing. And with the cafe, you know, similar sort of thing. You know, people in Canberra, especially in a suburban cafe, so my cafe and bar are both suburban, they feel a sense of ownership over those places. They feel loyal to them. They are grateful that we exist in their suburb, you know. I have been thanked for increasing property prices in Cook on more than one occasion. So, you know, I think people feel that way. And certainly that's no more obvious than during the pandemic, right? Like, people want to support you almost to painful degree. I mean, I've got one of the funny things that happened in the first lockdown was that with the bar we do pizza, really good pizza, and so it's obviously an easy pivot to do takeaway pizza. Okay, so that's great. First night, Friday night of that, I think we had like 200 pizzas ordered in the first 5 minutes when it struck 6. Like, it was obscene, you know, and it was awesome. It was amazing. We felt so loved and supported. But it was like, oh, please support us on a Tuesday and a Wednesday because this is hectic. I think the first night, the wait times blew out to like 2.5 hours because we were just like, holy shit. But, you know, everyone was really good. I think maybe one person had a whinge and everyone else was just happy to, you know, that we were there. And, you know, we know for a fact that they were doing that as much to support us as because they want a pizza, you know what I mean? So yeah, totally. I definitely feel that.
So we've also said that the title of this is From Table to Tech.
Yeah.
Two very different industries.
Yeah.
Talk us through that business journey or that transition from one to the other. How did that happen?
Yeah, look, if only it were that linear, right, and controlled. I mean, that would be a lie. So basically I transitioned from a regular public servant into an IT public servant. I think in 2008 or 9 or something, I think it was, I can't remember now, and sort of worked in IT for a few years as a public servant, and then made the decision to go contracting. I'd been out contracting for, I think, about 12 months, maybe a bit more, when I fell pregnant and had my unpaid maternity leave, as is the life of a contractor. And so, you know, that's cool. And then while I was on maternity leave, decided to open a cafe. So originally I was going to be opening that cafe with friends. That sort of fell apart a little bit, and we both made the decision that we would move forward and I would do the cafe by myself, which I did do. So by the time my son was about, I think 8 months old, it was, I had signed the lease and stuff, and by the time he was 1, we'd opened the cafe as Little Oink. So then, funnily enough, things are not smooth sailing in hospitality. Surprise, surprise, you don't make a lot of money at the start. It's a really tough industry to turn profitable straight away, especially when you don't have a clue what you're doing. So I kind of was, you know, probably I think a year or so into the cafe, bleeding money, and had the opportunity through one of my my old bosses to step back into a contracting role back in the department I had left. So that was really lucky. It was initially going to be a 16-week thing. I thought a 16-week cash injection is going to really help me. And then I have not stopped IT since. Yeah, so then I sort of fell into the space of doing it all at once. And so then the next, I think, thing to come was the IT company. So a group of us that worked together that, you know, we're really good mates, we're really high performing. We were, funnily enough, actually asked by a former boss if we could somehow find a way to do some work for him. And we sort of went, well, I guess we'll have to form a company, which we did do, which is pretty cool, me and all the boys. And we didn't even win that piece of work, funnily enough. But through a different connection, we got our first kick-off piece of work in another agency who is still a customer of ours, and that was 5 years ago. So since then, I guess we've met and exceeded all of the targets that we set ourselves in terms of eventually all of us being fully employed by that company and then starting to bring on a lot of other employees. So now we're in a heap of agencies, and I think we're heading towards 50 staff. And I am luckily in a position just at the end of the last financial year, so only a couple of weeks ago, for me to step out of being a billable resource, because I was doing a lot as well as being a billable resource, and just concentrating full time on being the COO. So yeah, in all of that, we also opened the bar. So that's been going for 3 years. That was traumatic. Yeah, so the bar, getting finance was very, very, very hard because we had to do a full fit out. Yeah, but that one's been profitable from day one because we learnt so many lessons from the cafe that we applied to the bar, and plus people love beer and they'll pay anything for it. Same with pizza, funny. So yeah, that's going to be my journey, I suppose, so far. And me doing this today, I guess, is the next step for me, given that I don't tend to do this sort of thing.
Wow, some big peaks and troughs. A lot to unpack there.
Yeah, that's the brief description.
I want to jump back to that early area though. So you had in there, you had a bit of a falling out with a partner. You also had a newborn, and you were also starting a business.
Yeah.
Reflecting back on that time, what do you think kind of got you through that? What kept you motivated and kept you going through what must have been quite a challenging time in your life?
Oh, look, I mean, a whole lot of things, you know. I've got a really supportive husband and family. You know, I have multi-generational situations. So my husband's father's lived with us since just after Bo was born. I haven't done a load of washing in 8 years. Like, we embrace that. He hasn't paid for a beer since the bar opened. It's a really good arrangement we have. So, you know, I lean on people and they lean on me, and I think that's what we all need to do. I think, you know, the worst thing that was ever brought to this country, well, probably not the worst, there's a lot of bad things that were brought, but one of them is this myth of the, you know, the nuclear family, and the frowning down upon multi-generational living. I think it's the biggest mistake, and I think everybody could, you know, use a little bit of, you know, family and community when things are tough. And I now have also, my mum lives with us. She works for me and manages a lot of the cafe bar stuff. So yeah, like, that's kind of one of the things that got me through. Also, like I talked about before, just that stubbornness, and I just really cannot fail or give up on something, even if it kills me. And also, and this is probably the number one thing, I was raised by a single mum who 100% believes and instilled in me a belief that I could do anything I wanted to do, that I was completely capable of doing all the things in the world, you know, and I've probably maybe taken that to heart a little bit too much.
I know that a lot of the women tuning in today either have a tech background or come from industries that still don't necessarily have great equality when it comes to hiring talent.
Yep.
What barriers have you faced as a woman in the IT industry, and how have you found that you've broken down those barriers or dealt with those barriers?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm in a company where I'm the only female of all the boys that own it, who I love to death, but absolutely it's a daily thing. And I don't think it's not always the most obvious. Like, obviously I would not work with any men who are like out and proud misogynist MRA type dudes. But it's just the subtle things, you know. For me, it's you're always starting from behind every time. And as I get older, this is not as bad, but and I know that there's people listening who know what I'm talking about. I can see their names in the list. The first time you meet a new person as a woman in IT, you're starting from the bottom. They're assuming you don't know shit about anything, and you then have to show that you know anything at all. Whereas most men come in with an assumed level of competency, and they really just, you know, they can prove themselves to be even better, or they can maybe fuck it up, but there's this level. Sorry, I'm also going to swear a lot, like I can't help it. I'm from the country. So, you know, and that's kind of one of the things. It still baffles me to this day. I'm going to tell you a funny story about one of the guys that actually works for me. Lovely dude. He's known me for a long time. He works for my company now. He's had a lot of interactions with me. He knows my thing. But he'd never really had a technical meeting with me where I was leading it as a project manager. We went through that meeting. I did what I do in meetings, you know, came out of that meeting, and he literally said to me, "No, I didn't know you were so technical. Oh my God, you really knew what you were talking about." And I was like, no shit, you know, how did you think that I got here? Good looks, good breeding? I mean, obviously not, you know. So yeah, it happens all the time. You've got to laugh it off, but you also got to call it out. But you can call it out with kindness. You can call it out and make it in a way that people can engage with what you're saying, engage with the fact that they've done the wrong thing, but they don't feel attacked, right? I use a lot of sarcasm, you know, I use a lot of banter, and a lot of people, like, you know, most of the time, if most of the blokes I work with, if that sort of stuff is pointed out to them, they're usually horrified. You know what I mean? They don't realise, but it's entrenched. It's, you know, and it's something that has been systemic ever since, you know, IT was taken away from women where it started, and, you know, the forefathers of IT were for women, you know, and at the point at which, you know, IT became a boys thing, we've been fighting against that for the last, you know, couple of decades really to change that. But it's totally a thing. Like, we can't pretend it's not a thing. I mean, it really is. You know, I think there's an ageism in that as well. I'm very conscious of the fact that I feel like a woman's credibility window is shorter. Like, I feel like you have to be older before you earn credibility, and you lose it at a younger age, whereas I feel like men are considered to be credible from 20 to 80. So, you know, I think that's changing over time, and it will only change as there are, you know, women in positions to show what we are capable of. But yeah.
So you're currently in one of those positions, being the founder of an IT company. You did mention that most of your team is men. So how do you feel that as a founder we can make this change, or how do you see breaking those barriers down for the next generation a little bit? Yeah,
that's definitely very difficult. I mean, even within the women in IT like sphere, a lot of those women, or a very high proportion of those women, sit in roles like I do, you know, management, project management, sales, the technical females who do technical roles is a lot lower. And I think that's difficult as well, because then there's an immediate assumption that you are not technical. So then you have to prove that you are technical. And then that's a difficult thing. I mean, we hire women if we can, but there's certainly more we can do. But I think it starts with at the entry level. It's traineeships, it's you know, internships, it's giving people opportunities. There's, you know, like, I don't think one of the original you know, people that started A23, none of those guys have tertiary IT qualifications, at least when they started in IT, right? So they all started not knowing anything either. So it's not like it's some, you know, merit-based or education-based or like background-based thing. It's, I think, it's giving those opportunities, but we can all do better. I can definitely do better, and that's something that I hope that now I've got a bit more time on my hands now that I'm full-time in this role, that I can try to target.
Yeah, we've had a question just in the chat that fits in here really nicely, which is, do you think leadership styles differ between men and women? How do you think A23 is different with you as the leader?
I don't know. I feel like you'd have to ask them. I certainly think there's a lot of myths about that. I think there is some difference between how men and women might manage, but the connotations that the conclusions people draw about that are false. So one of them that I've seen is this assumption that men are tougher than women because women are emotional. And I think that's like the weirdest and most bullshit thing I've ever seen. Like, if I have a meeting with, you know, the 6 other executives in my company, and I'm the only one who says all the things and like puts it all out there, but I cry in the middle, like, what does that mean? Like, who gives a shit? Like, I don't care. That's what diversity looks like. I might cry, but at least I'm saying what needs to be said. I'm being firm. I'm being, you know, like, staunch about things, or I'm being honest, or whatever. And I've seen this. I saw the same when I was in the public service. You know, that you know, the management of personnel, and that myth that men are harder on their staff. I've found that men find it incredibly difficult to hold other men accountable, especially if they're friends. And so I think that's a bit of a myth, to be honest. I think women, we're used to holding each other accountable because we're always being taught that we have to be accountable all the time. And some people call that bitchy, but that's just what we've been taught. So we're more comfortable, I think, with holding people accountable and holding each other to high standards of behaviour. And I think that crosses over. So, you know, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hugs in my company. I don't know. I know we're not supposed to do that at the moment, but hey, yeah, I don't know. But then I don't know, like, we're all individuals. I hate to put everything down gender lines. Like, I grew up in the bush, like, I was killing sheep at 5. I put myself through uni working in an abattoir. Like, what is it, you know, I don't think, and like, there's not too many men in my company who've probably done stuff like that. So, you know what I mean? Like, who decides what these gender things are anyway?
You've probably got the toughest stomach out of all of them.
Oh, yeah, man. I'm living through the zombie apocalypse, don't you worry about
Yeah, definitely. We're on your team.
Yeah.
I'd like to shift it into a bit of the here and now and talk about a bit of a response to COVID as well.
Yeah.
So we know that the hospitality industry has been hit quite hard, but the IT industry seems to be thriving. So how have you found responding to those differences with your two businesses at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's so weird, right? I definitely have my foot into completely different camps. And it's certainly difficult to reconcile even just the financial side of things. Like, it's difficult to reconcile the kinds of decisions you need to make in hospitality at the moment to do the right thing, but also to not go bankrupt, you know. While on the flip side, you know, being in this buoyant market where the kinds of, you know, money people get is crazy, the kinds of contracts that have been, you know, that we're able to fulfill at the moment is amazing. Like, we can't get enough staff to fulfill with the skill set we need in IT to fulfill the kind, you know, the amount of work that we could be doing. So it's definitely completely different. Also, I think we're kind of a little bit blessed from an IT point of view that pivoting to working from home is like not that big a deal for us. Like, with the exception of, you know, where people have to work in high security environments, like most of the stuff these days can be done, you know, from your desk at home. And a lot of our staff prefer that. There's a lot of introverts who like being at home all day anyway, and they've already got a good office set up, and so that's easy. On the hospitality side of things, it's totally different. You know, the people that work for me in my cafe and bar really live and breathe those businesses, and they treat them like their own, and they really care. But by virtue of what it is, they can't do it from home. They can't be safe in their bubble. And so I've got nothing but respect and, you know, gratitude for the fact that they rock up to my businesses every day, potentially putting themselves in harm's way, potentially to be not treated great by a person or something. You know, it's not a lot of people, but if you get one person a day who's rude, that'll ride you all day. So it's definitely been difficult. The government help is so confusing. Like, it's so unclear. I really wonder sometimes if they have any business owners consulting them on how they come up with this policy. I mean, you know, one of our customers that I used to work in had a big hand in some of these policies, and I would walk past and be like, oh my God, I just want to walk in there and tell you how you should do it. But yeah, we're trying to ponder through. But yeah, it's definitely been challenging. I mean, yesterday was a good example of that. I spent, you know, we had an all-staff Zoom meeting with all our A23, had a really nice chat to see if they were okay, did a few other things, then found out our staff that had was a contact was negative, so we could reopen the cafe. So then I had to do a stripped back menu and print it out and get it laminated to get it down there by 7 a.m. You know, there's tons of stuff going on at the moment, thanks to COVID.
And I know that a lot of, you know, business owners that run multiple businesses would kind of view their employees in one big pool. Is it possible to do that with businesses that are so separate, or do you have to kind of split your employees in your mind of how you talk to them, how you treat them, and all that sort of things?
Yeah, look, it is different. It's absolutely different. You know, it's a totally different demographic for starters. Hospitality, in my hospitality businesses, it's a lot of young people, students, and people on visas. That is the opposite to IT. I mean, pretty much anybody who isn't an Australian citizen can't get a clearance, so you don't tend to get a lot of people on visas working in IT. And then you also have, you know, not too many people that are super young like that as well. So there's a maturity difference. Yeah, it's super different. I just totally compartmentalize those two things.
Yeah, do what works.
Yeah.
One of the questions that's come through in the chat is, what are the challenges you find running multiple businesses? Is there anything that sticks out for you right now?
Oh yeah, it's just probably the biggest one is never feeling like you have open air where there is nothing that you're responsible for. That's the biggest one. I think because by nature and by profession, I'm a project manager, I'm used to the idea of delegating. I'm more than happy to let the experts do what the experts do, whether that be an expert in coffee or an expert in, Cisco. So that side of it I'm okay with, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with me in a lot of places. And so that's probably the hardest bit, is sometimes it wears you down, that feeling of like, I could not have a week where there is not something for one of these businesses I have to do. And that's been for 8 years, So that definitely weighs on me. But, yeah, I mean, there's a million challenges, but there's a lot of rewards, right? Like I've always had this feeling of my impending doom, right? Like, I've always felt like I've got to leave it all at the table. You've got one shot, so you may as well give it all a red hot go.
It's a good attitude to have.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to you a little bit more, Nat, as well. You are a proud Kamilaroi woman.
Yep.
What role does your Indigenous heritage play on your business?
Look, I think there's a couple of things for me. Probably the strongest, I don't know, the strongest thing probably is like, I've grown up with a very strong sense of the matriarchy. Like I've definitely grown up in an extended family environment where women have always been strong and tough. My great-grandmother outlived 2 husbands. She, when her second husband died, she lived for another 19 years. She ran the poultry farm. She drove the school bus. She kept those, and that was like, in the 60s and 70s in a country town. So, I've always grown up with that slightly othered, which means the rules don't apply to you. That's kind of the good side. I mean, there's obviously bad sides of being othered in society, and I'm not trying to take away from that, but there is a certain freedom to people not having those expectations of you, for you then to feel like you can do whatever you want. So, yeah, I've certainly grown up with a lot of strong women bucking the rules and bucking the trends, and doing what needed to be done. The myth of the stay-at-home mum, right? This was never for poor people anyway. So everybody always worked in my upbringing, in my experience. Probably the other parts of that is what I touched about before, that respect for an integration of extended family. Usually when I talk about the multi-generational living, people go, oh, well, then you must be Greek or Italian or something. That's usually the response. But, that's probably the other thing that it brings to me. And then it's just grounding. It's just grounding to know that if all of this fails, I've got a home to go to, I've got a place that I belong, I've got family, I've got country, I've got culture. I can go back and be just as happy as I was growing up with a whole lot less stuff.
I think that's a good thing to remind yourself every day at the moment as well. While the world's burning.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, you've said it all there as well, but I know that authenticity is a really, really important value for you.
Yeah.
How do you bring that authenticity into your business?
I do it all the time, and I amp it up. Like I think I don't know if I did this consciously or not, but I think I sometimes just like lean right into it. In certain situations, just leaning into the parochial country narrative really works for me. Like I think people like to see that you've come from somewhere and you are the way you are, and the thing is, I spent my 20s hating everything about myself and wanting to be a different person, and then I realized you can't, like you are who you are. So I think I just try to actually, rather than trying to hide or change or be different, I just lean right in. And I think that's what authenticity really is about. There's a lot of bullshit out there, especially in the self-helpy business coaching kind of market around being authentic, but like it rarely is. If authentically you want to have a cry in a meeting, or you want to give someone a hug, or if authentically you swear a bit, or whatever it is, like you just have to find a way to do that, be who you are without hurting it or offending anybody else. And I think people respond to that. I mean, there's nothing better than being able to relate and to share an anecdote or, you know, talk genuinely about, you know, how you're feeling or what's going on with you to find that common ground with just about anybody, I think. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who's kind of struggling to break that mold at the moment?
Yeah, look, I think that's a tough one. Like, you have to sort of, some of it and I know this sounds terrible, but some of my authenticity is also quite calculated, right? Like, keep your eye on the prize of what you're trying to achieve, you know? Sometimes, like, you don't need to win every argument. Like, if what you want at the end of that meeting is for that person to agree with what you've proposed, then that is the win. And if the way that you get there maybe, you know, is you biting your tongue on something that someone said, or you not responding to every triggering moment or whatever it is, just keep the eye on the prize, because if you manage to manipulate and achieve the thing that you wanted to achieve, that's the win. You know, like, you've also got to cut. We're not actually in business to change hearts and minds, and I think women put a lot of pressure on themselves to be not just successful in business, but to be, you know, morally righteous, to be perfectly wonderful all the time, to be the carers, to be all the things. And it's not fair, and it's too much. So, you know, sometimes you do have to be a little ruthless and you know, just take the wins that you get.
I guess it takes practice as well. Like, for those that it doesn't come naturally to, just do it in tidbits.
Yeah, that's it.
Just ruffle some feathers every now and then.
Yeah, exactly right.
If you guys have any questions for Nat, please chuck them in the Q&A. Nat, at the Canberra Innovation Network, we use mentors to be quite a big influence on the entrepreneurs and the work that we do. I'd like to get a glimpse into who or what inspires you.
Oh, look, you know, I'm inspired by Dolly Parton and the other strong women in my family, like my great-grandmother, like my mum. Yeah, I think I'm going to be serious here about Dolly. There is not another person I can think of who is a boss bitch while being exactly who she wanted to be, you know, who has fought against, who has lent into the stereotypes about her and built an amazing empire, who donated $1 million to a COVID vaccine, was one of the first to get injected. Like, she's like my literal hero. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, never ever, you know, lean into who you are while still doing the things that you say that you're going to do, and be completely, you know, true to who you are. And it doesn't have to match up. Like, who decides that, like, to be this, you got to look like that? Or, you know, to be serious, you can't, like, sequence. Like, it's a load of shit. So, yep, I'm going to say Dolly's my answer.
That's an excellent answer. Very fun. Dolly can tie into my next question. I'm sure she's an incredibly resilient woman.
Yeah.
What keeps you resilient in the face of your business challenges? Like we've spoken to before, you've had quite the roller coaster already.
Yeah.
What pushes that resilience in you?
Look, I think the first thing to say is that I'm not always resilient. Like, I have a little breakdown on, you know, at least a monthly basis, right? So I think let's not pretend that that everything's like sunshine and roses. Like, I think doing this kind of stuff is maybe not even that good or healthy. Like, you know, it's just what I do. But certainly I think it's the belief in myself that I know I can get through it, that I can achieve, that I can do it. Like, I've just got to, if I just go hard enough, try hard enough, do enough, then I'm going to be able to solve this problem or get through this thing. And it's pivoting all the time. Like, you just can't be so bloody minded about, like, what you thought something was going to be to the detriment of all else. I mean, the cafe is a perfect example of that. Like, and I swear everybody has this journey where if they open a cafe, you know, you want everything's going to be free range, organic, locally sourced, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's all cool, but you will not make a cent of money if you do all of those things. It's just impossible, because while people love to pay lip service to wanting those things, they don't really want to pay for it. That is the reality, right? Well, we'd all be paying $10 for a coffee. Oh, don't shoot me. So anyway, so like really very early on, you had to decide, well, do I want to stick to my guns and go out of business within the first 6 months, or do you have to choose your battles, you know? So we made a decision, we're going to do free range eggs, we're going to do, you know, like we're going to do ethical meat sources, but then, you know, fruit and veg is going to be the cheapest and best quality that we can get that makes sense financially, you know, stuff like that. We were always obviously going to pay everybody correctly and follow the award and, you know, pay all of the penalties and do things properly. But what I thought I could also do is pay people extra and more than everybody else. I thought I could put, you know, my guys on these salaries in the first couple of years that nobody else was paying in the market. Yeah, well, you just can't, like, you really can't, like, the market does define it. And so, you know, there's some of those things where idealism and gets real old when you're pouring your own money into a business. So, yeah. I would say that's the biggest part of it, is resilience, is flexibility, right? It's just being able to go, that's not working. You've got to change. You've got to pivot. You've got to know when to step back, I suppose, from something as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's a question here. What's your advice to a single business owner who wants to diversify or expand into other businesses that's not their core?
Look, I don't know, because I didn't do anything on purpose, you know.
I know when we spoke earlier this week, I asked you about your incubation of your idea, but you used a different term.
Oh, yeah, like brain fart.
Yeah. The brain fart.
It was a brain fart. Look, I think the main thing is that there are transferable skills between businesses, absolutely. Probably the most important one is, and it's the best advice I ever probably got in the early days of running my cafe, and it was from probably the closest thing I had in that scene to a mentor, which is Chris O from 2 Before 10. So despite what people think, not competitors, he's like my bro, and he's given me so much advice over the years. And his was know your numbers. You need to know your numbers. Like, you need to know what's coming in, what's going out, what percentages you're hitting. And it doesn't matter what business that is. Even if you're selling your art, even if you're selling, you know, something that you're passionate about, it still needs to make financial sense. You still need to understand what's coming in and what's going out, you know. And I think that that's probably the one thing that is transferable across. And if you know that from your one business, then I think you can pivot that to another one. I think you probably got to think about why you're doing it. You know, is it because, you know, is one more of a passion project and the other is actually going to make you money? Is it because one is an obvious feed into the other? Because I guess there's a lot of people have multiple businesses that are more aligned than mine are very separate, but, you know, I think that's something to think about. If you can reuse any of your resources, systems, processes or staff to pivot into another, you know, income stream, like, that's a no-brainer, right? Yeah. But I think for me, I think it's the opposite. Like, everyone I know that opens a business, what it does is open the floodgates of you thinking that you can have 100. That's what my experience has been. And I'm sure there's people in there that have had the same, where originally they were like going to do one thing and then they're like, well, this is easy. No one's stopping me. No one's telling me I can't. I'm just going to do all the things. And so now it's more going, no, you don't do that. No more for you.
What's your next business?
We'll do a brew for sure. We'll do a brew.
A brewery?
Yeah, we'll do a brew pub, no doubt. So my husband and our bar manager are really passionate about craft beer. Our bar's a craft beer bar, and I have no doubts that will happen for sure.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of questions in the chat specifically around, do you find time for yourself and how do you relax in the midst of all of this?
Oh, look, I'll be honest, look, I'm pretty lazy around the house and stuff, so I don't like do any housework, so that leaves me a lot of, you know, free time. That's the upshot of having the multi-generational living, right? We all do our things. I do relax. I'm very good at switching off. Despite how blah blah I am, I'm pretty, like, I have quite an analytical kind of brain. So if I cannot in that moment do anything about that thing, then I will not stew on it, like, at all. I'll stew on like a comment or a interpersonal thing. Maybe that's a women thing. I will stew on like a little interaction or something like that. But like if you know, I'm not going to stew about something to do with how the businesses are going. If I can't really do anything about it in that moment, I just switch off. I've got heaps of good friends, and, you know, family and puppy, and yeah.
Puppy's a great way to relax.
Yeah.
We have 2 more questions, and they're a little bit similar. So I'm going to ask them as kind of a double-barreled one, which also will require you to kind of define how you define success. One is, what's the secret to becoming a successful entrepreneur? And the other is, are you happy with your success?
Okay. What was the first bit? Say that again.
What's the secret to becoming a successful entrepreneur?
Oh, okay. Well, look, I don't know that there's a secret, right? Like, I think starting is the first one. I've spoken to so many women who have been thinking about starting their own business for years, and who are supremely qualified to do so and have not started. So that's, you know, so absolutely start is probably the secret. And then beyond that, just keep going and realise that, you know, I think I don't read a lot about business. I've never read a bloody business book in my life. I've tried, but it's not in me. But one thing that I did read once was that, you know, business owners tend to overestimate what they can achieve in the first year and underestimate what they can achieve by the 5th year. And I think the underwritten part to that is you've got to get through the first year. So I think that's probably the secret to me, is start and then just get through that first year no matter what. Just push through, have some, you know, cash reserves and get through that first year, and then I think things get a little bit easier in that sort of second, third year. As for, am I satisfied? I'm never satisfied with anything, no. That's what I touched on at the beginning. There's like, I think that people that do what we do are not necessarily that, like, mentally healthy. Like, let's get real, you know. I should be just, you know, kumbaya-ing, but I don't have it in me. So satisfaction, I don't know what that is, but I'm happy.
Amazing. So other than the brew pub, what's next for Nat Legg?
Well, I don't know, man. It's COVID. Like, I don't have any choices. I thought I was going to go to the snow last weekend. That never happened. But yeah, look, I don't know. I'm going to try to lift more weight. So I used to do powerlifting, and my darling, wonderful coach, who Lisa knows well, Liz, has been on my back to try to, like, be less shit. So I'm going to try to do more than one session, like, a fortnight. That's a goal. Yeah. What else? I don't know. That's it, really. I just keep doing what I'm doing and roll with the punches. I've just bought a new house, so I'm just buying things like everybody else.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, yeah.
The most dangerous online impulse shopping purchases is buying a house, I guess, in lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. I've got a lockdown puppy coming. I'm doing all the things you're not supposed to do. But anyway.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for answering all our questions today, Nat. Did you have any final thoughts or anything you wanted to wrap up with?
Not particularly. Thanks to everybody who stuck it out and listened to me talk. This is absolutely not something that I ever do. I mean, I do talk a lot over drinks with friends, but, you know, so thanks so much. And, you know, if anybody needs anything, reach out to me. I'm always happy to have a chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Nat. Over to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Nat. Thank you, Nat, for agreeing to come and be our speaker. Initially, I booked Nat to be the Women with Attitude speaker for August, and then when I reached out to Canberra Innovation Network and we were trying to find a month that would coordinate with all of our schedules, it meant that Nat then got upgraded to being a female founder with Canberra Innovation Network when she didn't actually sign up with that initially when she said yes to speaking for me. So thank you so much, as I knew you were going to be amazing, and you are.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I thought I was going to do 20 minutes in the morning with 20 people, but anyway.
That's all right.
It's fine.
You know, you're an entrepreneur. You know, you get dropped into the deep end and you just
100%.
with it.
Yeah.
So Women with Altitude hold normally a monthly event in Canberra. It's normally the third Friday morning of the month, which is today, but we made this a lunch because we were meant to be eating food. The things that we have that Women with Altitude have coming up in September, we have three main things coming up to let everyone know about. We have How to Enter and Win Awards. That's going to be on Friday, September the 3rd. It's an online webinar. It's free and it's with our amazing founder, Andrea. She will be running that. Our September event, which may be online, it may be in person, fingers crossed it's in person. It's called Declutter Your Desk and it's with professional organizer Virginia Wells, and that's on Friday morning, September the 18th. One of the things that Women with Altitude do is they actually convene a national awards program called the Altitude Awards. There are 16 categories in the awards. There's no entry fee. It's a very simple awards process. So for everybody online today who's in business, whether you're a startup, whether you've been in business for ages, I highly recommend you entering the Altitude Awards. I was actually the first person in Canberra to be a finalist in 2017. I actually won my category, which unsurprisingly was titled Strategic Connector of the Year in 2018. And it's one of the reasons Women with Altitude actually came to Canberra was because I connected with Andrea through the awards. So hopefully there'll be a big awards event up in Sydney in early December. There's hundreds of people at it. It's a wonderful event and I highly recommend it. So Altitude Award applications are closing the 30th of September. Women with Altitude is a membership organisation, and if you join, there's you can also access all of the groups in Sydney, which obviously at the moment are online. So lots of opportunities through Women with Altitude, and you can also join our Facebook group, which is Women with Altitude Canberra chapter. Thank you to Britt and Sharon and all of the Sebron team for co-hosting this and opening Women with Altitude up to more people in Canberra. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. It's been a wonderful collaboration. Now to wrap things up, I'd like to pass over to Sharon.
Thank you, Britt, and thanks, Lisa. It's been really great working with you and with Women with Altitude, so hopefully more collaborations to come. And of course, Nat, thank you. That was awesome. There's so many nuggets we can take away from that, and I'm really looking forward to that brew pub opening up, as I'm sure members of my family will be too. And yeah. I love what you said, that, you know, we don't always have to be resilient all the time. We can, you know, have our meltdowns, and we all do it, and we just don't show it sometimes, and maybe we need to. So thank you for your honesty in that. So there's a few things coming up with the Canberra Innovation Network. Obviously everything's moved online, so starting next Monday we've got our weekly innovation challenge, so adapting your business to the lockdown. So each Monday from 2 o'clock, we'll be talking about a different topic each week. A guest speaker talking about, you know, difficult challenges, bringing relevant insights and practical suggestions into the conversation, and there's an opportunity for you to have an interactive involvement in that. So registrations are on the Innovation Network events page, or you can chat to our staff. Obviously, First Wednesday Connect can't be in person. It's scheduled for the 1st of September, Wednesday the 1st of September, 5 till 6:30. We will have still have our awesome 1-minute pictures. We're using the Remo platform again, so that gives you an opportunity to interact with people, move around the room, and it's almost like being there. The 2nd of September, obviously September's a busy month with the Women with Altitude events as well. So Idea to Impact starts, the 10-week customer challenge. So if you've got an innovative idea, or you want to run an innovative business or anything like that and looking for some impact, have a look at that. That's on the website as well. Co-working. I know we can't co-work together at the moment, but we are kicking off our virtual co-working option again. So even while you're working from home and you want that interaction with people, there's an opportunity there to do that and to stay connected. So Candice Ryan is our co-working manager, and she'll be able to answer any questions that you want and just find out what you need to do. So have a look at our website, sebron.com.au. Subscribe to the newsletter as well, so that'll keep you up to date on what's happening. and it's a really good read. There's lots of really great articles about what people are doing that are really amazing within our innovation community. So thanks again for joining us today. Reach out if you need anything, and we look forward to seeing you again. So take care. Thank you.